everyone. I'm super excited that I'm here today with those beautiful ladies. We're gonna talk more about women's football, and since I was an ex-football player, I'm super excited to be here to just talk more about football and what have changed in the past years. So we have Josie. Now I can call you Josie since we became friends a little back a while ago. Honey and Miski. Josie, let me start with you. You've been playing for Arsenal team, for Germany national team, and you've been through a lot, World Cup and Olympics and everything. From your point of view, what have changed for the past 10 years in women's football?
First of all, I think it's an amazing event, and I'm really happy to be here, so thank you for the invitation. And I think the question is what has not changed, because it's been a hell of a ride. It's been so many things going on. And let me put this maybe in an example. So we have in England an FA Cup game, sold out 60,000. It's going to be in the next weeks. We have stadiums in Europe sold out. In Germany, in my home country, we have currently in the league the spectators rising. We have 30, 40,000. So I think just by the numbers, because they don't lie, you can see that it's a market. It has a value which is unbelievable, and for me it's the most fun because I had my career in it, so I enjoyed it very much.
So speaking about the numbers, honey, I want to ask you about something. The last Women's World Cup was very different. Back then, we didn't watch the Women's World Cup on the television, or just people wouldn't care about watching it. But the last World Cup was very different. Even the attendees in the stadium, it was the number was horrific. So, and also when we go out to the restaurants or cafes or anywhere, we see people turning on the Women's World Cup. So what do you think this is happening now?
السلام عليكم مساء الخير للجميع أنا مبسوطة إني أكون معكم اليوم. Sorry, I'm speaking in Arabic.
It's okay.
Back to your question. Actually, we have seen tremendous development in women's football, definitely. Since its beginning in 1991, the first ever Women's World Cup, compared to the last World Cup that happened just last year in New Zealand and Australia, the shift was huge at all levels. So what we have seen, that the world started to realize that women's football is not just about gender. It's about talent, it's about professionalism, it's about a product, it's about a brand that needs to be invested in. And that's when we started with the new reforms at FIFA, change of management. We had to set a new strategy that is bigger than anything else, that includes big part of it, commercialization. And that's where it started to see the shift, because we encouraged more sponsors, broadcasters, to show the matches everywhere around the world. That's why the last ever Women's World Cup, we have seen more than 2 billion viewers all around the world. And this is really historical. Yes. And for the first time ever, also the Women's World Cup generated revenues, because until 2019, the Women's World Cup has always been a loss. Because, our revenues at FIFA is generated by the Men's World Cup. Every 4 years, we generate from the Men's World Cup. And then we spend those money back into football and back into other tournaments all around the world, including women's football. But last year, it was the first time ever that we generated revenues from the Women's World Cup. Why? Because leaders realized to invest in women's football will bring back a great success if you deal with it as a brand and not a gender. And that's where FIFA now is pushing forward, that in 2027, we will also make another historical move. And that's now, it's the trend, because we cannot go back to where we started, because now it's the change, and we should continue on that, whether strategically, commercialization, sponsorship, broadcasters, to encourage them more and more to push for women's football everywhere around the world.
I think her answer made me very happy. It's we're going places here. That's very cool. So, Miski, Hey there. So, you're working in the CAF in developing women's football, and I think that's very hard thing to do. You've been there for 5 years, actually, and for me myself, have been like a very big and huge change in women's football in the past 10 years. So, how does it feel to be in this position and like passing through all those phases?
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I think for me, working in women's football is my passion. It's what I love to do, and I was fortunate enough to do what I love. So, in the past 5 years, we have seen a lot of development, a push coming from our management and the management of football in Africa. I think it's always crucial to differentiate women football and women in football, because I am a woman in football and we are a woman in football in general. And for us, it is not just developing the game in the field, it's also making sure that women have a place, a recognized place in the sport, in football, with our administration, journalists, as a broadcaster. So it's a great role to work in women's football, and I'm enjoying it. And I think Hani mentioned something where if you invest in women's football, the profit is huge, the success is huge. And we've seen from Morocco's investment, a bit of investment in the past 10 years, where they have reached the World Cup, where they have reached the Women African Cup of Nations final, and where they have won 2 trophies for the women's club competition. So there is a lot of changes in women's football in the continent, and this change is both in the field and outside the field. We have had women football directors, women directors in CAF for the past couple of years. We have had our own first COO. So there is a lot of changes and there is a lot of progress, and I'm happy to be there to witness it.
I think we're all happy to. So, Josie won the Olympics. The match was German against Sweden in the Olympics, right? I want to know how was the support back then, so that we can like see the difference between when this happened back then and nowadays, if this happens, like the support between before the tournament, before reaching finals, and after you won the Olympics. How was it back then, the support from people, from media, from everyone? And what do you think it's gonna be the same if it happens like nowadays?
Okay, if you imagine Egypt winning a major tournament, coming back home, and I think it shouldn't matter if it's handball, if it's football, if it's whatever it is. I think you celebrate your country.
Starting from the plane, it's just like when the moment the plane lands and like until players go back to their homes.
You celebrate because you will get something from it as well. So I know when we left to Rio, to Brazil, I think there was a little bit of supportment, and with Germany we always went like this. Maybe in total we went like this. So we had some support, but we had 2011 the World Cup, so we had a major push, but we didn't make it to the final, so it went down a little bit again. So it was always like this. Sorry for the translation, I'm talking really fast. So I think going to this event, for me it was the biggest in my career. We had a support, and we won, and we came back, and it was like this. I give you an example. It was like, so it was like this, okay? There was nothing more. This was the support. This was the celebration. It was just like, well done. So going back now, I think to the World Cup we went with Germany, and we didn't make it far, but the whole country was celebrating.
And they were supporting too.
So even if we were not winning, because that's what support means. You support through the low times, the high times. So I think if there will be another Olympics, I cross my fingers for Germany, it will be totally different.
So Honey, you've been working in FIFA staff for like 12 years, and that's like many years. And I think back then, 12 years ago, it wasn't that easy to have a seat in FIFA. What's different between back then and now?
I mean, look, women had always to fight the fight, right? And always find a place on the table, unfortunately. Because it has been known that football is just for men. And still, in some countries, football is not popular. I mean, I grew up in Palestine, in Bethlehem, where girls were not allowed to play football in the streets. But I was the one who just said to my dad, how can you allow the two brothers, my brothers, to be in the streets and not me? And of course, he never had a good answer. And when he didn't give me a good answer, I continued to play football. And that's why I think, to a certain extent, I give the credit to women for fighting the fight and, you know, like paving the way for other women to go up forward. Because when I was a young girl, I wished that I had a role model that looked like me, to look up to her and say, oh, one day I want to become like this woman, right? I didn't have that. So now, after 12 years, we created that to the new generations.
So you became the role model.
Well, if you say so.
Yes.
So now, like
Yes.
girls, young girls, they look up to us and say, look, I see a woman representative in the CAF, leading a women's football division in 54 member associations. And like Germany is leading women's football at all levels. And you know, like as I mentioned, that we also have Morocco national teams going up forward. We have many Arab national teams breaking out the stereotypes. So I think within 12 years, I have seen a lot of changes, including also women's football representation at all levels in football. When I arrived to FIFA in 2012, we had 0 women represented in the council member. Literally 0. And the first ever woman, she was actually a woman from Burundi, from Africa, not even from Europe. And I was also surprised, coming from Palestine to Europe, I thought, wow, now I'm coming to a world that is women are equal and they have equal rights, equal opportunities, even equal pay. And I was shocked to an extent that still women have to fight for a seat on the table. And that happened the first time in 2012. A first ever woman to be in the council member. Now we have 7 women in the council member. Definitely a step forward, but still there is a long way to go. But that's why FIFA is trying now to lead by example and include more women in the leadership positions to ensure that also member association, 211 that we have, they also include women in their management, whether as Secretary General, whether as CEO. And we have witnessed some changes so far since the last 12 years, I would say, by also hiring the first ever Secretary General for FIFA as a woman and from Africa, having women in the management. FIFA has more than 41% women in their own staff. So yes, there has been changes since I arrived until today, definitely. At all levels, everywhere, including Palestine as well, where I grew up.
That's very nice. Just that's motivated me as a person. So, Miski, you've been working in the CAF, you're responsible of developing women's football, as we said before, for 5 years now. So what have changed in those 5 years? Like, as I told you before, especially in Africa and here in Egypt, women's football has changed a lot in the past 10 years. We weren't used to like seeing girls wearing football kits or something, getting soccer sneakers or anything. But nowadays, women's football is very different. So what have changed in those 5 years? What have you done?
It's not just me. I think when we talk about women's football, it's not the responsibility of one person. My responsibility as head of women's football at CAF is making sure that every department recognizes women football, and when you talk about marketing, they also think about women's football competition, they also think about women's competition, referring, they think about women's referring. So my job, literally, I'm not doing it alone. I'm trying to say that every department have their own role, and my job is there to push them to say, okay, you're not doing this in terms of marketing, where is the money, competition, where is the next competition, where is the schedule. So that's my job. And I think In the past 5 years, the very good thing we did was get women's football the recognition it deserves in the continent. And the push that we did, especially in terms of increasing the competition, the AFCON, the biggest women competition in the continent, from 8 to 12 team, and the creation of the Women's Champions League, that has pushed our member association to invest more in terms of their own league and their own national team, which we have seen the effect in the last World Cup. I think the last World Cup was a testament of how women's football can be the next biggest sport in the continent, and how actually African can win and can come closer to winning the World Cup. We have had 4 representatives in the last World Cup, and from 4, 3 of them make it through the group stage. Sorry, Jessie. Morocco, German was there. Morocco make it to the next round. So we've seen how Nigeria tested the finalist England, and they lost in penalty, and they should have won that match. So African football, African women's football have a big potential. So in our job, we developed the strategy. My former boss, Anthony Bafo, is here. He was actually the one who also pushed for that. We make sure that we have a strategy in place to push women's football forward. And we make sure that those strategies are recognized by all CAF staff, and the strategies, the objective have been met. And I'm really proud to say that we have a lot of numbers, increasing number of in terms of competition, in terms of promotion going forward. So for me, the biggest achievement so far is the recognition that women's football have in the continent.
So, Josie, let me go to the part where you're just a player in Germany, and then your scout or your agent came and tell you, like, you have a contract for Arsenal. And this was a big thing back then, for a girl to go play abroad for other team as big as Arsenal. It was a thing. But I think it wasn't that common back then. So how did that feel back then? And like, how is it important nowadays, and the difference between back then and now?
I like the question because for me it's the key in my whole career. I wanted to play in Germany for exactly the time till I win everything, and then say bye and go to other cultures and other countries. And that's exactly what I did. So I went to France and then at some point to Arsenal. It's a huge club, but for me it stood out the culture around. So they take football so serious that at that point they took the women as serious as the men, and you could feel it a little bit in how they worship, how the fans worship the games. And for me it was just unbelievable to see that you can achieve. That's why I said that now they have sold out stadiums. You can achieve the same things, and very important point, go your own way. This is where football, women's football, is now like to get the things from the man's structure and then put it their own way so that it makes sense for us, so we can grow naturally. For me, it was an unbelievable time. I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I always thought I'm not German because I don't come on time. I do things different than German. I'm not that structured. But at that time, in France, for example, I learned I am German because I come half an hour before the appointment and everyone arrives 2 hours later. The Egyptian way, maybe too. I don't know. No, but for me it was unbelievable. The culture is why, the different cultures is why I am who I am today, because I met people who told me, by the way, you're privileged, by the way, this is not normal, by the way, you should be thankful for that, and see other cultures. It was amazing.
That's super cool. So, honey, in Arab countries, it was not that easy for a girl to move out, to like travel, play for other club outside, and it's very different. But now everything is changing in Arab countries. It's like people started to really accept that girl can play football and like they can play really good, and even clubs starting to believe in this. So what does it feel now to see like Arab countries started to like say, okay, girls can play football? And I have another question for you is like انت فلسطينية عربية في position عالي جدا ومش مش حاجة قليلة ان بنت تكون فيها، لا حاجة كبيرة قوي and واكيد انت you've worked so hard to like reach this. How did you keep going في ظل الأحداث اللي بتحصل دايما? What kept you motivated?
For the first question, I must say the change that happened in the Middle East, let's say, is enormous, definitely. I mean, to see women's football in Saudi Arabia has established at all levels with professional league and big competitions and sponsorship and broadcasted on TV for the first time ever. This is definitely a step forward. When just a few years ago we struggled to push for a women's team in Saudi Arabia, right? So not only that, of course, when we talk about Jordan, when we talk about Palestine, when we talk about Syria, Lebanon, when we talk about all these countries that's still going through a lot, not just culture, but politics, social, cultural barriers at all levels. So like if I take the example of Palestine, we grew up in a very difficult circumstances, knowing that tomorrow might never come. How about playing football? Because lacking infrastructure, lacking facilities, lacking recognition, lacking security, safety at all levels. And just believing in the power of football, in giving you that opportunity to transform your life, that's a big deal. And now going to how this helped me to move forward, regardless of growing up in Palestine as a Palestinian, witnessing from one war to another war, from a struggle to another struggle, and just believing in football as a way to bring hope and to deliver a message of we love life. And football is about fair play. It unites the worlds. It gives us the opportunity to the outside world. It liberated me personally and made me believe that there is tomorrow, when I believe that tomorrow might never come. Those challenges gave us the possibility to move forward. So if you ask me how, it's a difficult question, because I think in the middle of destruction, death, and despair, في وسط الحرب وفقدان الأمل وفقدان الأمان، لقيت طريقة من خلال كرة القدم إني الأمل إنه يكون موجود، وإني أطمح لفرصة ولحياة أفضل. للأسف هلا الظروف في فلسطين كتير سيئة، وكتير بيعاني الشعب الفلسطيني وخصوصاً بغزة، وإن شاء الله توقف الحرب في أقرب فرصة ممكنة، ويصحى العالم ويصحى الضمير البشري. منلاقي إنه في كرة القدم هي وسيلة لإعادة البناء، وسيلة للأمل، وسيلة لنفكر إنه في مستقبل أفضل طبعاً من خلال الرياضة. Just to switch back to English, it was not easy at all. The challenges are tremendous and they are horrific. To just believe that football, it could be a way, because in the midst of destruction and despair and death, there's nothing you could think of. You think of water, you think of shelter, you think of security. That's what you think of. But in my context, football changed my life completely. It moved me from this young girl, little girl playing in the streets of Bethlehem, to this woman working in FIFA at a high level, representing Palestine everywhere around the world. Just to carry this message from the hopelessness of war, I'm still here standing in front of you and delivering this message. Thank you. Thank you. And that's what keeps us on, the support that we get, the motivation, the belief in our cause is really important. And my belief in my cause made it stronger to promote these values and through football, because football was my instrument, my weapon, my tool to move people forward, to support what we do, and also to send a different message to the world about Palestinians, and then to change the narrative that we Palestinians, we love life, and we want to live abundantly. We also respect women. We play fair, which is football, and we believe in hope and opportunities. And that's what we want to convey to the world, and that's working with football. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm happy to continue talking about football, because football is my life, and football has changed my life to where I am here today.
That inspired me a lot, actually. So, Miski, when I always come to developing, I have to ask you, since you're like in charge of it. So nowadays, women's football became very different. Like, girls can really make good money out of it. Okay, it's very different than like before. So please tell me more about it nowadays, and what's different nowadays in women's football. Not only girls can make money out of football, but their clubs, their coaches, everyone. So tell me more about it, please.
Thank you. I think, Honey, that was inspiring. I think football, women's football, is an untapped market, and there's a lot of investment happening globally. We have, for example, the first African women to make the biggest breakthrough last week was Rachel. She was transferred from Madrid FC to Bay FC in the USA. Bay FC is a new club that's now established, and they are doing a lot of the investment. And this girl from Zambia will be making 2.5 million in 5 years. That is a record in women's football, and it was broken by our African player. When I say Oshwala, you will recognize her name. But when I say Rachel Konanji, you will not recognize her name. But she's a big star. So the next generation of stars are coming for African women's football. We have Sarah for Egypt, who's playing abroad, making money, supporting a family, and making a career out of football. For us at CAF, this is our core objective, that women think football is a career choice. As a player, as an administrator, as a promoter, as a marketer, that I can actually work in football, not just in women's football, but I can actually work in football and make money, because that's what's happening right now. From CAF's side, we have a regulation in place, our women club licensing regulation, which help us to make sure that our clubs and our players have contracts, they have a better playing situation, a better playing condition. With those regulations, with this type of regulation, we make sure that women's football is becoming professionalized. And it's making our Champions League, Women's Champions League, stronger, because the girls are more secure to play in their clubs. And I will tell you, really, African women's football is an untapped market. And our girls can make money and can support their family and can benefit their clubs through football. And that's what's happening, and that's why we really need to focus on women's football. I mean, in this market, for example, in Egypt, we have Al Ahly, Zamalek, the biggest clubs in Egypt, but they have never played in the Women's Champions League. Only Wadi Dagla have played in the Women's Champions League. So we need to bring those clubs to have their own team. And when Al Ahly said we are the club of the century, actually they are saying in women and men football, not just in men football. You cannot be the club of the century without focusing on women's football. I don't know if there is Al Ahly representative here, sorry. But this is what we need. So the competition need to move from just men football into focusing on girls football, because I live in Egypt for the past 5 years, and I've seen every girl playing everywhere. You have the conditions, you have the field, and girls are very much interested in playing football, but we really need to give them the same opportunity we are giving boys, because next time a girl is making 2.5 million, maybe she will be an Egyptian. So you have to make sure that there is focus and there is opportunity given to girls.
So before we end this panel, which I'm enjoying so much, I need to ask the three of you the same question. Where do you see women's football in the coming 10 years? Let's start with Josie.
Okay, well, let me start there where you stopped. If I imagine, let's not say 10, let's say 5 years. Okay, 5 years.
5 years, yes.
I would love to see, I don't know what the stadium name is. I say Cairo Stadium, sold out, women's game on television, maybe in the Champions League too. No, but honestly, and I would love to see, because we're not begging anymore, so we're not, please invest in women's football, because everyone who doesn't, it's their own fault. So I agree with everything you said, and I would love to see this coming more to life, changing for the better, and brings us all together, because every time I'm here, I feel like, well, every time I'm traveling, this is my first time here, I feel like we come closer. That's it.
So you,
Up to
Hani.
you.
I would like to see female presidents everywhere. I want to see female presidents in clubs, in leagues, in member associations. Because I believe when women is also on the top, they can open the door for so many other girls. Until today, it's still unfortunate that men has to make decisions on behalf of women. If we let them in, if they come on the table to discuss, if we invest more or not. And there are many guys, men, that are supportive and feminist to the women's game. That's why they opened the door for us as well. But I want to see that in 10 years, we stop talking about women and men. We talk about equal opportunities, equal rights. We talk about competence, professionalism, expertise, rather than gender. I would like to see that in 10 years, this room is half men, half women. Speakers are everywhere, half men, half women. And it's not a topic that we just have a panel for women's football. So, and I even would like to see it before that. But I feel that the future is bright, and the more women we have on the table, the more success we will have, the more better outcome we will generate. Because if you ask me about the development of a country, I would tell you what is the women representation there. To empower a society, you need to definitely empower a woman from grassroots level to elite level. So I would say one day I don't want to talk about women's football. I want to talk about football for men, for women, for everyone, regardless of gender, nationality, ethnicity, color, whatsoever. Thank you.
I don't know if I can tap on that, but from the African perspective, globally, I want to see our national teams reaching the final of the World Cup. World Cup Senior, Under 17, Under 20, Club World Cup. I also want to see more investment in women's football, especially in countries like Egypt, where football is a big subject and a big investment. So that investment a bit shifting to the women's game. We really want to have a sold-out crowds in our African Women Cup of Nations and African Women Champions League. Egypt was the first one to host the Women's Champions League, with Wadi Dagla competing in the Champions League. So maybe next time we will do it in Cairo and we will have a full stadium. And our focus and our objective should be girls getting the full opportunity that boys have. They are playing in a well-organized club professionally, having contract, having salary, having the support system. That's what I want to see in 10 years.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this panel, and I hope every one of you have enjoyed it as well. And I'm actually super proud of where is women's football going. It's really going places. Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's also a colorful panel, you see? All the colors in the room.
Yeah.